Is it safe to come out now? Is the coast clear? Are all the haters gone? All the trolls gone? Cause I can't take any more hate comments, please. No more hate on me, please. It looks like the coast is clear for now. I can put this shield down. Okay. One more video. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here with the final top 10 list for the week, and this time we're counting down my top 10 films that I really liked that everyone hates. And you already know what it's all about, so let's get started. Kicking off our list at number 10 is the forgotten classic of the Disney Renaissance, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, I kind of understand and see why a lot of people don't like this film given its very dark and moody tone, which was very different when compared to all the other Disney films that came out during the Renaissance, although you could also make the argument that many of them also had very dark and grim tones. I mean, come on. Mufasa dying in Lion King, that was pretty damn dark. But I guess when compared to the other members of the Disney Renaissance, no other film was as much of a downer than The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I mean, which one would you rather show your kids? The Hunchback of Notre Dame? Or The Lion King? Or Mulan? Or Hercules? I'm pretty sure you would go with the latter rather than the former. But the reason that I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame so much and why I continue to sing its praises, being that this is the third or fourth time that I've mentioned it in a top 10 list, is because it was such a breath of fresh air and a change of pace for Disney to tell a much darker and adult story, and a huge risk for Disney. Hunchback of Notre Dame does not get enough attention as it is, and I feel like the hate against it is kind of unjust. And I think you guys should go check it out if you have not seen it already. And if you're on the hate side for the film, watch it again. I think you might find something to really enjoy and embrace in it. Okay, I'm a little afraid to talk about this number 9 choice because I know a lot of people hate it, but I can't help it. The first time I saw it, I got a kick out of it. And I thought it did kind of embrace the spirit of the character and of the past films, and that is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Haha, you missed. Yeah, I know all you uber Indiana Jones fans are probably hitting that dislike button right about now, but I'm not gonna deny it. I got a kick out of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I've seen it a couple of times, and each time I see it, I just really enjoyed it. And I don't know why this film, out of all the films in the series, gets so much flack for how over the top and ridiculous it is, when some of the films in the past were just as ridiculous and over the top. Like the Temple of Doom. You mean to tell me that when Indiana Jones, that annoying Asian kid and that blonde bimbo fall off of a cliff on a raft and survive, tell me that is not ridiculous? Hell, even the nostalgia critic pointed that out, like he doesn't understand why everyone loves the Temple of Doom, but just can't stand the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And he does make a good point at the end of the video as to why he could see why people love the Temple of Doom and why they hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But I could almost make the same argument why I really like the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull compared to the Temple of Doom. And yeah, I know nuking the fridge was a bit over the top, but you know what? I just come to accept it. That's just the world that we live in. And I've seen everyone talk about how much they hate the film. Hell, even the South Park creators dedicated a whole entire episode to it about how they felt like Indy was getting raped by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, which I actually found really funny. But I felt like Butters in that episode. Butters really liked the movie. I was just like him. I'm like, I liked it too. Is it the best Indiana Jones film? Oh, absolutely not. That still remains Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is it the worst Indiana Jones film? That's really up to your opinion. Me, personally, I didn't like the Temple of Doom. Overall, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. The only real problem that I have with the film was with the CGI. There's just way too much CGI. They should have used real sets, real locations like the old films. That's the only real argument that I agree with. Other than that, had fun with it. Making their last stand is my number 8 choice, X-Men: The Last Stand. Now, a lot of people hate the director Brett Ratner. They just feel like he makes terrible movies and he's on par with like Uwe Boll, M. Night Shyamalan, and Michael Bay. Me personally, I'm very indifferent about him. I don't really hate him, but I don't really like him either. So when he was chosen to helm the 3rd installment of the X-Men franchise, a lot of people were really worried to see what he was gonna do with it. Was he going to succeed? Was he gonna fail? And it turned out to be a box office success. but everybody ended up hating it anyway because they felt like it butchered the Dark Phoenix Saga story arc from the comics. And being someone that never read it, I can't really compare it to the comics. But again, it's an adaptation. Going back to what I said about, adaptations, blah, blah, blah. I said that in my other video. So I feel like it's only people that were really, really into the comics, that really knew the story, that got really butthurt about it. But I just had a fun time with it. It was just a fun, action-packed movie, and I just wanted to see Hugh Jackman as Wolverine kicking ass and taking names, and that's what I got. I think one of the few issues that I had was there was a lot of mutants, and we didn't really get to learn much about them or learn about their power sets. Not a lot of development given to the mutants, but that's also in the other films as well. You don't really get to learn about them that much. And I will say I didn't like the fact that they killed Scott off and they killed Professor Xavier off. I thought that was kind of why do that. And there were a few X-Men that I wish were in the film that weren't in the film. Other than that, I thought X-Men The Last Stand was quite an enjoyable film. And speaking of kick-ass films, we got my number 7 choice, Kick-Ass 2. Now, 2 days ago, I mentioned how I wasn't a huge fan of Kick-Ass and I never understood its wide appeal. So when I heard they were making Kick-Ass 2, I wasn't really that excited to see it. I mean, I saw the commercials. The only thing that really sold me to seeing it was Jim Carrey. I really wanted to see Jim Carrey as, Captain Stars and Stripes, although he later on condemned the film. But he was the selling point that made me want to go see the movie. And when I saw it, I was actually really surprised at how invested I was in the story and how much I really liked the characters. I felt like they were more developed and dealt with more interesting dilemmas in this film than they did in the second. And the McLovin as the motherfucker, love it, love it. And the way that he dies too is pretty hilarious. There were some sentimental moments, there were some kick-ass moments, there were some hilarious moments. It just made for an overall enjoyable and fun experience. Although a lot of people were like, it's just not as good as the first one. Why they let Matthew Vaughn go? And oh man, Jim Carrey. Not only was it not critically praised, but it was also kind of a box office flop. And it broke my heart because I actually enjoyed the second run and I would have loved to see what a third Kick-Ass film would be like, but it's looking like we're not gonna be getting that. Confusing the crap out of the main populace, but intriguing the hell out of me is my number 6 choice, Cloud Atlas. I actually rode on my bike in the rain to go see this film, and it was totally worth it. My God. The film is nearly 3 hours long, but I could not take my eyes off the screen. I was just so intrigued by the story, the characters, how everything was all tied in together, and the fact that it takes place in different times. It was just an intriguing movie, one of the best films I saw in 2012. But as I said earlier, the film just confused the crap out of everybody. Some people just didn't understand it, other people didn't like how long it was, and some people just outright hated the film. Hell, one of my film teachers actually called the film 6 shitty movies put into one. And I can understand if people got frustrated trying to understand and follow the story to the point where they ended up hating it. I can respect that. But for me, I got a kick out of it. I've watched it a couple of times and I still love it. Cloud Atlas as a whole, in my opinion, was such a daring and inventive piece of filmmaking that I thoroughly enjoyed. Calypso! I released you from your earthly bond to be in the number 5 spot. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Now, it was pretty daring for Disney to attempt to do a back-to-back sequel with the Pirates franchise, considering that most franchises besides the Lord of the Rings have never really fared well when attempting to do this. Excuse me. But I personally believe that Disney succeeded here with At World's End. It was a solid threequel that gave you everything that you wanted to see in a Pirates of the Caribbean film and more. Tell me that wasn't one of the most epic and climactic fights to a film you've ever seen dealing with ships. That shit was just awesome. But of course, a lot of people had a problem with the third film, feeling like it was way too over the top, way too cheesy. Jack Sparrow was way too annoying, especially that scene where he's on a boat and there's just multiple Jack Sparrows everywhere, which I kind of felt like was a bit over the top and a bit too much, but I still kind of enjoyed it. I mean, he was wacky and goofy, that's his character, he's supposed to be like that. But what baffles me even more is how much people pile on the At World's hate, but seem to give On Stranger Tides a pass. Nah, that's a good movie, it's okay, we liked it. Are you fucking kidding me? That shit was worse than At World's End. The third film had a very interesting story that did an excellent job at building the world of the Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, they traveled to so many different places, you learn about so many different pirates, and it was so interesting to see. The acting was very solid, the direction was really solid, the action scenes were intense and compelling, especially the ship battles. Holy crap, some of the best ship battles I've ever seen in a film. The film had me laughing out loud a couple of times, there were some scenes that really touched me, and it all ends on a very satisfying note, giving full resolution to not only the story, but its characters. Whoever wins in the number 4 spot, we lose. And that's Aliens versus Predators. Now, much like Brett Ratner, a lot of people despise the director, Paul W.S. Anderson. They find him to be a complete hack and one of the worst directors working in Hollywood today. And similar to Brett Ratner again, I'm very indifferent to the guy. Sure, there are a lot of movies that he has directed that I completely hate. I agree with everything that everyone says about the Resident Evil films. They are complete and total shit. They're terrible. Terrible adaptations of video games and just a terrible film in general. But he has made other films that are pretty good. Like, everyone still likes the Mortal Kombat from the 90s. I really enjoyed Event Horizon, which I think is his best film. And then there's Aliens vs. Predators, which, as a person that wasn't a huge fan of both franchises when he was younger, when I first saw Aliens vs. Predators, that shit was super cool. This was one of the first crossover films to come out in the mainstream. Before Freddy vs. Jason, before the Avengers assembled, before Batman vs. Superman, there was only Aliens vs. Predator. And I just got a kick out of the film. And this was one of the first films where the lead character was not only black, but a female. That was pretty original. I loved every scene where the aliens were fighting the predators. I think the only real complaint that I have about the film is that I wish there were more alien predator fights, because I think you only get about 4 in the entire film, and then you follow these human characters that are very expendable. I mean, they go into the building to die. That's all they're there for. But other than that, I still got a kick out of it, and I understand why a few people hate it, because it doesn't really connect to the lore of both Aliens and Predator, because the continuity with the timeline, it just doesn't fit right. I mean, this film takes place in 2004, and you know, the timelines with Aliens and Predators, they take place in the future, so it doesn't really connect. But even with all that timeline messy gobbledygook, I still got a kick out of the movie, and I give Paul W.S. Anderson some props for it. Alright, the top 3. Here we go. Coming in at number 3 is Grown Ups. Yes, I know. When it comes to Adam Sandler films, we don't expect these grade A comedies, or even the comedies that he made in the past. But I remember when I first watched Grown Ups, I was laughing my ass off. I mean, it felt like these people were just like good friends that were going on a trip, and I felt like that's what the whole movie is about, is these 5 friends that are kind of reconnecting from their past, and that's all the movie needed to be. It didn't need to be like this deep story about, oh, we're grown-ups, but we still act like kids, and things never change. That's not what I wanted to see in the film. I just wanted to laugh. And that one scene with Rob Schneider, yes, I know, but it wasn't Rob Schneider. Well, he was kind of funny in the scene, but the scene where he's singing Ave Maria, me and my 2 other friends that went to see the film, we were dying. That shit was hilarious. Guys, life is a highway, and I'm gonna ride it all the way to the number 2 spot, and that is Caurs, which at the time of its release was the most negatively reviewed Pixar film ever. Like, it got like 50s and 60s, people just didn't like it and didn't understand why is there a world full of cars, and personally, I loved it. I was really attached to the characters. I like the message of the film mostly. I mean, you can say all you want about the story, you can say all you want about the characters, but the message is true. For those of you who don't know what the message of Caurs was, it was to enjoy life. Stop living life in the fast lane and skipping out on all the beauty that the world has to offer. That was the whole point of him going down Route 66 and going to this small little town where he met all these colorful characters. The only real complaint I have for this film is, of course, Mater, voiced by Larry the Cable Guy. I still found him very annoying in the first film, but he wasn't as annoying in the first film as he was in that one that we'll never talk of. The message was sound, the animation was great, the voice acting, for the most part, was pretty good. I just thoroughly enjoyed the film. Alright, here we are at the final one, guys. Number 1. Now when it came to picking number 1 for this list, it was a no-brainer. I knew exactly which film I was going to choose and which one I wanted to talk about because I feel like people harp on this movie way too much. It is not as bad as people are making it sound, and it's one of the best ones of its trilogy. Is it the best of the franchise? Absolutely not. But for the trilogy that it was a part of, it was the best, and it had the most compelling story, characters, and dilemmas. And I'm guessing many of you may know what I'm talking about, but if you don't, my number 1 choice is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Star Wars fans for years have hated on the prequels, every single one of them. And I understood their hate for Episode 1. I understood their hate for Episode 2, although I would make a counter argument that the Yoda fight was my favorite moment and I did like Mace Windu. But then when it came to number 3, I felt like, okay, now they're just nitpicking and now they're just being ungrateful douchebags and just picking at this movie limb from limb and not even acknowledging all the great moments of the film. That's why, again, going back to the Nostalgia Critic, I praise the fact that when he did his top 11 moments in the Star Wars prequels that weren't complete shit, he kept talking about Episode 3. In fact, most of his points were from Episode 3. There were just so many great moments in this film, like the manipulation of Anakin by Emperor Palpatine, Order 66, the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which was intense as hell, the battle between Yoda and the Emperor, freaking cool, Mace Windu's fight with the Emperor, really cool. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying that this film is some sort of epic masterpiece that's on the same level as the original trilogy. I understand that this film is very flawed. There are some issues with it. Like, some of the dialogue scenes are still pretty cheesy and god-awful. There are some scenes that I feel like were unnecessary or didn't make sense. But that's not to say that there aren't any good elements of the film as well, and there are. It's just that they're constantly overlooked by the awfulness of the entire prequel trilogy. It gets roped into that category and condemned by everybody, which is totally unfair. And honestly, that's all that needs to be said. I stated my points and reasonings and made them clear. If you'd like more clarification of the points I made, I'll put a link in the description to the Nostalgia Critic's top 11 moments in the Star Wars prequels that weren't complete shit, and you can watch it for yourself. And if you still disagree with me after I said all that, that's totally fine. We all have our own different opinions. If you want to unsubscribe to me now, there's the door. See you later, bye-bye, don't need you anymore. Or if you agree with me, that's totally awesome, because I'm not gonna change my opinion that Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, is my number 1 film that I really like that everybody hates. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my list of the top 10 films that I like that everyone hates, and also concludes the series of top 10s that I did this week. I thank you all for watching, and hopefully I didn't lose any of you. Maybe I gained new subscribers, maybe? Because I was willing to put myself out there, hit that subscribe button now. But I would love to know what you guys thought about my list. Did you agree with it? Do you hate my fucking guts now? Or do you feel like I left any films out? And let me know, what is a film that you absolutely adore but everyone else seems to hate? Comment below and let me know. And stay tuned tomorrow, because I'm going to see Avengers Age of Ultron. Oh my god, I cannot wait. And I will have a review out for you on Friday. So, until that video comes, guys, if you would like to be a part of the Black Critic crew and not miss out on a single awesome video on this channel, please hit that subscribe button, like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm Tony the Second, the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.